Alright, so we are going to work on some oil pastel techniques. So first things first, oil pastels are very soft and they smear. They can get really messy. So you want to be careful when using them, and you don't want to apply too much pressure, or else it's going to break the tips, and you're going to have more oil pastel on the paper, which means it's going to smear more and it's going to get really messy really quick. So unless you want it to be really messy, you want to be very mindful of the pressure that you're using when you are applying your oil pastel. So same thing goes for oil pastels when coloring, just like using colored pencils. Okay, so you don't want to apply hard pressure, and you don't want to color like this and outside the lines and all messy and having spots in between. Okay, you want to continually color in one direction using soft pressure. Now I'm using pretty light pressure and I'm getting a pretty solid color, so I don't have to press down on my pastel super hard to get it to apply the color that I want. Okay. Now, when creating value with your oil pastels, you're gonna do the same thing that you would for colored pencils. Okay, so you're going to apply a little bit of a harder pressure at the beginning to make something darker, and then lighter pressure as you want to make something lighter. Okay, so to create a value scale, I'm going to apply my pressure and then loosen the pressure out even softer to create the value from dark to light. Okay. Now that's hatching. You can do the same thing for cross hatching, stippling, and smudging and random. So if I'm doing cross hatching, I'm going to go one way first, and then the next. Stipple. So you want to keep them closer together to make something look darker, and then spread them apart or act as if you're pulling them apart to make it lighter. And then with oil pastels, they do smudge, so you can do smudging as a shading technique. Take some paper towel. Okay, now to blend colors, you can use all of these techniques. Okay, so if I wanted to could do a yellow, put some yellow down in a hatching style, and then I could take a blue and place the blue over top to create a green. Okay. Same thing if I wanted to do random. Then I could take the blue to create a deep purple. Okay. And then of course after that too, you can always smudge them together. Okay, to kind of mix them even more. All right, now if you want to blend two colors together, you can think about doing two value scales together. So I could take one color one way, and then I could take another color the other way and blend it into this color. So I'm going from light to dark, harder to softer pressure one way, and then the other one the other way. And so now I've got kind of like this violet in the middle. And again, you can always blend them together by rubbing them or smudging, but you don't have to, but you can. Okay. All right. So now some really fun techniques that you can use with oil pastels. I'm going to go over just a few now that we kind of understand the basics. So what you can do is you can actually use water on the oil pastels to activate them to act kind of like a paint. Okay, so I can have a form here, shade it in, okay, and then I can take water in a small brush and just a tiny bit of water and brush over top of the oil pastel. To get it to activate like paint. This is also good too when you want to blend colors together. So if I take one color here, another here, I can take my water and my paint again. You of course can also take the oil pastel and dip it into the water and draw with it. So I'm going to take this, dip the tip in there, also good for mixing colors. You can also do a wet on wet. So you can wet your paper first. And then you can take the oil pastel, dip it into the water, and then draw on top. Or you could do a wet and dry. So you could wet the paper and then take a dry pastel and again draw on top. Alright. Some other really cool techniques is rubbing to create textures, just like with colored pencils. So you want something that's thick enough and also hard enough to where you can rub over top of it and it's going to create that pattern or that imprint. Okay, so I'm going to take this heart, place it underneath my paper, and then take an oil pastel and color over top. Okay, so you can start to see the imprint. Okay, I did hard pressure here, so I'm going to try light pressure. Okay, so it's a little hard to see. Okay, I'm going to try my stencil now. My stencil might actually be too thin for the pastels, but I'm going to try it. Yeah, stencil too thin. So you need something thicker to create textures with the oil pastels. Okay, you could even try textures such as like a binder rim. So I can take this, put it underneath the paper. You start to see the texture come through. Okay. You could also try to create texture by using the wet method. So you could put water here, take your pastel, create your texture, and then even experiment even more by adding more water on top. Alright, so the last and final method is sgraffitoing. So that is actually scratching away the oil pastel to reveal what is underneath it. So I'm going to use this one as an example since this stencil did not work out. So this is going to be purple. So you want to take a sharp edge, okay? So like a needle or a broken pencil tip maybe to scratch away the oil pastel. Oh, that's not working the way I want it to. Try scissors. So as I scratch the oil pastels away, you can not only see the lighter purple underneath, but you can start to see a little bit of the paper too. So this is really good for making any types of textures in the oil pastel. So you can also do, what's really cool is doing a light color underneath. and then applying a dark color on top. If you scratch away, then it reveals that brighter color underneath. Alright, and that is all. Feel free to experiment with the oil pastels and maybe come up with your own.